Welcome to the Leader-Post Rider Rumblings podcast, episode 169. I am Taylor Shire. He is Darrell Davis, and we're chatting about the Saskatchewan Roughriders' first loss of the season. They fell to the Calgary Stampeders 24-10 on Saturday after we were supposed to play Friday. We had to wait 19 hours for the smoke to clear, and then finally we got to see, I guess not finally because it was kind of a dud of a game, but we got to see these two teams play on Saturday, and it was a one-sided affair, Darrell.
It really was, and we kept thinking, especially because of the delay. I'm angry how long it took for the delay, right? Make a decision somewhere, let's get it done with. The decision they made was the right one. It just took forever, and they subjected a lot of fans, a lot of people to an extra delay that they didn't need. I'm glad they played it Saturday. It was a lot better. But after staying overnight and trying to find accommodations and places to eat, the Calgary Stampeders, we thought, how are they going to have any chance to come out against a home team that went home, had breakfast, ate at home, slept in their own beds? And it's funny. Isn't that weird to you, Taylor, that the home team was horrible and the visiting team was outstanding? So I couldn't figure why the Roughriders were so flat. And I still can't fathom any excuses why the Roughriders were so bad in losing their first game of the season.
Yeah, based on how Calgary looked, Friday's game might have gone. Calgary looked good, in my opinion. Saskatchewan, and it wasn't necessarily that Saskatchewan was bad. I thought Calgary looked good. So Friday's game could have played out if they were able to play just as so, right? With Calgary dominating on defense. They dominated in the trenches, offensively and defensively, all game long. Vernon Adams Jr. looked great. But yeah, Calgary's defense looked outstanding. But yeah, that was the one surprising thing I said on Friday. I said, well, Saskatchewan now has a clear advantage going into Saturday. But maybe the Stampeders used the sort of, the delay as a bit of a rally together, kind of, everybody's against us. This situation is played out against us. So, we have to come together and win this game. I don't imagine it played much into it. They were obviously thrown off their routine a little bit, as were the Riders, but not as much as you mentioned, getting to go home. But yeah, it seemed like Saskatchewan was a little bit hungover from the delay, right? And just didn't have it, weren't jacked. I imagine they were excited to play Friday night game under the lights, this, the other, a nice July night. But yeah, come Saturday, it was a dud.
Athletes thrive on adversity sometimes, don't they? They do love to think, everybody's against us and let's do it. Both teams said they were ready to play all night, but I couldn't imagine an 11:15 kickoff. So they were both sitting there waiting, basically dressed and ready to go. The fans were waiting, but a no-go, no-show. Maybe it would have been different. Maybe the Roughriders just were totally pumped for Friday's game and then just fell off the table edge on Saturday. As you said, the Calgary defense was great. Saskatchewan's defense started great, gave the Roughriders offensive football on turnovers on Calgary's first two offensive possessions. The Roughriders didn't get a first down off either of them. They didn't get a first down until the second quarter. They were ahead 3-0 because Brett Lothar kicked a field goal, and there's an issue too. Brett Lothar missed 2 out of 3 field goals again. He's now 10 for 16 this season. That's getting worrisome. I know we've touched on Brett Lothar's struggles this year. If you've got a 62% kicker in the Canadian Football League, you're in a little bit of trouble. And I think as good as they've been and as patient as they've been, and I know he's bounced back before, I don't know if he's going to bounce back this time. And I think they better start bringing in somebody because everybody else on the team gets challenged if they're underperforming. It's time to challenge Brett Lothar now too, I think.
Yeah, we've said it, or I've said it before. If it's a blip, so be it. But when it becomes a trend, then you need to potentially address it. So maybe one more game. I'm going to give them another game. Who knows? They might bring in a kicker this week. We'll see. But until it becomes the clear and obvious issue, or until, I would say there were some field goal problems in that game, but maybe they were head coaching problems because they should have kicked a field goal when it was 3rd and 4 in the third quarter, right at the end of the third quarter. You kick those 3 points. 3 more points on the board, you go down, you have to go for it again on 3rd and goal later in the fourth quarter, and they were obviously incomplete on that as well. And so if you kick a field goal in that situation, you got another 3 points. Okay, you're only 8 points away, and in the final drive of the game, minute left, they were down 14, which isn't great. A minute left, you're down 8, you have a chance still.
You do have a chance.
That to me was a bigger problem. Sure, Brett misses 2 field goals, but a bit of play calling. I don't mind going for it. It's not a bad thing. They weren't playing well, so why not? I think not kicking a field goal was a decision. I don't necessarily agree with it. But in that decision, why not put Tommy Stevens in, do a run pass option? 3rd and 4, you have so many options, and maybe Trevor Harris scrambling out of the pocket is your best option.
I agree with you on that one. I probably about the kicking too. That get those field goals, those 3 points. Your offense was really struggling. Your defense was too, actually. So take the 3 points when you get it, and they eventually add up.
Take the points. Isn't that like the classic coaching philosophy? Take the points.
Yeah, take the points. Get them when you're sure you can. And third and 3, 3rd and 4, that was a little tougher. And you're right, leaving Trevor Harris in on that play. Why did you get Tommy Stevens? His career rushing average is 4.3 yards per carry. So that's within his range. Get him the football in that situation. And instead they do a rollout with Trevor Harris, and the offensive line had a tough game. Its worst game of the year. Those injuries are finally starting to show along that offensive line. And they couldn't protect them. So maybe just take the safe stuff on that one. I know a lot of people, a lot of observers are saying, hey, great idea, go for it. I'm thinking like you are. Get the 3 points. Get the football again, get it down, get 3 more points. And then that last drive, rather than have Brett Lother just kick, basically you think of it as a meaningless field goal, and everybody says, why are they kicking a field goal? Well, they play the Stampeders twice. Mm-hmm. So points differential could make a difference if the Roughriders win the next game. So that's why he was trying to get an extra 3 points. But he had 2 other opportunities to get those 3 points, or 3 points at a time. So, yeah, some weird coaching strategies. It's the first time we've really second-guessed Corey Mace for some of his strategies this year, but I think they could have handled that better.
Yeah, I mean, so Brett misses 2 field goals. The Riders potentially could have had, Brett missed 1 field goal earlier. The Riders could have had 2 more field goals, so that's 9 points. That makes it a very close game late in the fourth quarter. And the Riders had they shouldn't have won that game. They shouldn't have been in that game. The defense, I think, helped them by forcing a couple of interceptions and a fumble. Calgary looked great. They looked like the better team. They deserved to win. I don't think Saskatchewan should have been in the game in the fourth quarter. And evidently enough, they really weren't. And even Harris said that after he threw for 425 yards, and he called them yab yards. I thought that was one of the best quotes in that. Yab yards after beatdown.
Yeah.
They were getting their butt whooped, as May said, and they almost sort of made a game in the fourth quarter. It really wasn't. It felt over by the time we got midway through the fourth.
It did. 24-10 was actually kind of flattering to the Roughriders because it was Calgary's game right from the start of the second quarter, right? Saskatchewan comes out. They have a little meeting at halftime after they're down 17-3. They only had the football for 9 of the 30 minutes of the first half. They go in, have a discussion, and came out, and Harris connected with Robustelli. Joe Robustelli had a pretty decent game. He might have been he was obviously the player of the game for the Riders, the young receiver, or the new receiver. I guess he's not that young, but so they catch that touchdown pass, pulled it within 17-10, and then Calgary's very next play, Damien Alford goes 81 yards for a reception touchdown from Vernon Adams against Antoine Brooks. I've heard people talking about Antoine Brooks Jr. and he had to step in for Tevon Campbell as a cornerback. I was expecting a little better performance. There were in a couple positions he made decent plays, but most of the time Alford really dominated him, took the football away from him a couple times, and I thought that Brooks struggled a little bit. I was thinking that he would be a better performer, and maybe it's just first game jitters. It's his first start. So, but the Stampeders certainly deserve to win it, and probably by more than 24-10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was 2 plays in the game where I thought the game was going to play out a little bit differently. The first one was A.J. Allen's interception on the very first offensive play. I said, okay, there's a lot of momentum, right? You finally get a chance to play the game. Turnover on the very first play. There's the momentum. Go down and score. That to me would have been sort of putting a lot of favor on the Riders if they would have scored on that drive. Go down and score. And then they force another turnover on the second one and then come away with you need to be able to score points. And field goals, sure, if you get maybe 1 field goal and 1 touchdown, that's fine. But the fact that they came away with 3 points, I think, basically set the stage for the rest of the game. But then they go in at halftime. They're still in the game. You mentioned Joe Robustelli makes that touchdown grab. Okay, I feel the momentum shift. You kind of felt it a little bit in the stadium, but that next play to Damien Alford, that to me was not really the turning point, but it was okay, the Riders are not going to win this game. That to me sealed the deal.
That was the killer. You're absolutely right. It was, and they needed a stop, and the defense
Yeah.
has been getting stops for them. How about that defense? We've talked about it before. Corey Mace is the defensive coordinator, head coach as well. Very conservative all the time. They relies on a pass rush, and their defensive line hasn't been outstanding on the pass rush this year. But that's what sets things up and forces the quarterback to make throws into a zone defense. They play so many zones. They rarely blitz. They rarely blitzed against Calgary. Meanwhile, Calgary is blitzing Saskatchewan quite a bit and being effective. What do you think about that? The blandness and the predictability of Saskatchewan's zone defense after zone defense after zone defense calls.
I think we're going to be harping about it in a week from now when Nathan Rourke picks this defense apart on Saturday, is what I think. Vernon Adams, like he was making every throw because it seemed like he knew what was going to be there for him.
Yep.
He knew where the coverages were. He knew where the soft spots were. The receivers obviously got in the right spots, but Vernon Adams looked like an MVP, right? He was had 428, 3 touchdowns. So yes, I think and we talk about, or Mace talks about, allowing them some of those throws, but then make the turnover when it counts. And sure, they got the turnovers, and the offense didn't do their part, but you still can't give up 428 passing yards and an additional 100 and some rushing yards. Dedrick Mills had 85 yards, I think. So. Yeah, bad game all around. And I don't think they got many sacks, right?
One sack. The Riders posted one sack, and
but so it looks good because they got a few turnovers, but nothing essentially happened after those turnovers.
Yeah, no turning points, and that's what that zone defense is supposed to do, is create turnovers, right? That eventually, and they have to be turned into points because you're supposed to be able to take a long time to drive downfield, and they did, but it's exactly as you said, that Vernon Adams was finding all the seams. They bounced their running backs outside. Mills had a great game. Horrible performance. It wasn't horrible, but it's a predictable performance by Saskatchewan's defense. They were effective earlier this season, occasionally when they would blitz, right? So the fact that they never blitz is so predictable for the Roughriders that Vernon Adams can stand there. And you're right, Nathan Rourke, when you see what he did to Edmonton Elks yesterday, on the weekend, amazing how he picked apart Edmonton's defense, and he'll be able to do that with Saskatchewan's unless the Roughriders throw in a couple of wrinkles, which they don't necessarily try. We talk about running game too, and just always got to remember to mention this, that AJ Ouellette, who had been leading the league in rushing, gets 9 yards on 6 carries. So the Roughriders offensive line, we don't just put it on them, but Ouellette a little bit too. But it was a bad offensive performance by the Roughriders, which hurt them, and a defense that really didn't make the stops or was too predictable to really counterattack Calgary's offense.
Mm-hmm. And that was one. Yeah, I looked at AJ's stats over his career, and I think 2021 he had a game where he had 3 carries for 6 yards. So in nearly 4 years, that was his worst performance. He'd never been held under 10 yards. So,
and they had been relying on him, right? The running attack.
And I was going to say, early in the game, maybe you go to him a little bit more. I don't even know if they handed him the ball to. Sure, he was stopped. I think he had about 2 or 3 carries in the first half, but go to him on those first down plays right after you get that turnover. He played so well the game before that they kind of went away from that.
They had Kadeem Carey dressed too, right? So they gave him the football one time. Why not try, if Ouellette's being stopped because they can read him or they just know what they're doing, put in Carey. He adds a different wrinkle to that offense. They had to play him because Thomas Bertrand-Huron is hurt. So they dressed Carey as a backup. He's still obviously has some life left in him, and use him a little bit to change up that offense. And they didn't make changes. Maybe that's the key to both of those, Taylor, on offense and defense, that the Roughriders didn't alter anything. You're right. They didn't they got stopped by AJ Ouellette and didn't go back to him. So they tried other things that also didn't work. On defense, they tried the same old thing. That didn't work. So be innovative, guys. Try a few new things, especially what's the definition of insanity, right? Trying the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different outcome. And the Roughriders seemed to be their philosophy against Calgary.
Yeah, and I didn't watch Zach Fry's every rep, so I can't really grade his performance on how he did filling on for Trevion Tate. But that to me was going to be a big loss that this team needs to overcome, is losing Tate. He's been outstanding.
and aggressive.
That's what I mean. He just sort of was that guy along that line and playing guard. He usually plays tackle, but coming in and playing guard this year, he just helped solidify that interior. Daniel Johnson, I think, was exploited a couple of times. Again, I didn't watch every single rep that he did. I can go back and watch a few more, but he got beat a couple of times. I did see for a couple of sacks. So are they going to keep that same offensive line going forward? Is Zach Fry their guy? Did they need to think about bringing in somebody else at that position? Obviously, there's not a lot of options with all the injuries they have, but that's something that potentially could watch if they get exploited again.
Yeah, they'd held together pretty well, and we've given them kudos and credit for that offensive line. That Edwin Harrison, the head coach, the offensive line coach, has done a great job fitting in the right people. But eventually, that well runs a little dry. They've lost so many players, and your point about Trevion Tate is so good. He was the guy firing out there and being aggressive, and I think they lost a lot of that aggressiveness, especially on that left side of the line, not having him in there. And he's gone for 6 games, so they might have to make a bit of a change there to see if they can fire up that offensive line again.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk. We touched on it at the start. We've talked about the game, but let's go back to the Friday night and how it all played out. You wrote about it after the delay, which took a little bit longer than many people, including
a little bit.
would have liked. So looking back, and I imagine the CFL is going to develop some new weather protocol when it comes to smoke delays and whatnot. It has to be different than the thunderstorm delays, and there has to be some wording in their official weather protocol. But with how it all played out, what would you have liked to see differently now that we're a few days removed from it?
Make the decision quicker. You've got 26,000 people in the building and a whole bunch of athletes just sitting around wondering what's going on. That was the complaint I heard mostly from the fans, that what's going on? Well, every once in a while there would be a little social media blurb. A lot of our information when I was watching what was going on came from Jay McNeil, the president of the Calgary Stampeders, who is telling the Calgary play-by-play team, radio play-by-play team, what was going on. We expect to play. This is what we're looking at. And that's where a lot of the information came from. The Saskatchewan Roughriders could have done the same thing with Jeremy O'Day, their general manager, Craig Reynolds, their president. Come out and say something on the big screen and say, this is where we sit right now. And that way you're getting an official prognosis of what's going on, rather than leave the stadium host to tell people this is what they got booed. The poor stadium host got booed by the crowd because they're telling them that there's a delay. If you put Craig Reynolds out there, it looks official, it's done, and then make that decision quicker. I understand, and you did a really good story about that, listening to Craig Reynolds tell us why the weather forecast, the meteorologists were telling us what's going on. It's clearing up in Moose Jaw, but it didn't. You can't always predict the weather. So say, you know what? Let's start looking logistically at what we have to do for the Stampeders, for the fans and everything. We have the stadium available next day. Let's just move it. If there was any doubt that it was going to be moved, move it, make the decision earlier. You could, when we heard that they were going to decide at 10:45 and maybe kick off at 11:15, that's absurd. So the decision should have been made earlier, and it should have been relayed to the fans, to all the broadcasts, the radio listeners, the TV viewers all across the country. They needed to know earlier, and so did the players. And that's the only issue. So I hope, as you were talking about, that the CFL comes up with a policy. Their policy is full of holes. They don't have something written for what happens before the game starts. And that's one of the things you're writing about this week. Have that policy in place. Tell us what the policy is, how you're following it, and move on.
Yeah. Again, I think the Riders, the Stamps, the league, everybody wanted that game to be played on Friday. And that's clear. Like, there's a whole bunch of logistics that need to happen on Saturday in order to get that game played. You don't want to have to go through that. Everybody wanted to play it. They were hoping for a wind gust. And anytime you again leave your fate in the hands of the weather gods, like you have to develop some policies that don't allow you to just prey on hope, right? I hope the wind's going to come and blow this smoke. So when going forward, I think that if you are forecasting smoke for the game, they knew about it on Thursday. On Thursday night, they should have had a statement that said, if this game cannot be played, we are playing it at 2:00 on Saturday, because that's when the models are showing that it will be clear if the smoke doesn't clear. So that gives fans from out of town a chance to look at the weather themselves and make an informed decision about if they want to go to the game, if they want to sit and smoke, if a potential game is played, if they want to not make the trip and maybe make the trip Saturday. If they're looking at the models, give them the information to make an informed decision about if they want to drive into the game, if they want to sit there for the length of the game, right? And so that's what I think needs to change moving forward, is that if you are forecasting there's potential of smoke or smoke delays on Thursday, the day before the game, come out with a policy or come out with a statement that says, if the smoke isn't cleared by 2 hours after slated kickoff, we're going to move the game to Saturday. Or the next day, here's what you're going to do, or move the game to a different day. That, to me, I think, give the fans and give the media, TSN, everybody the most information you have and solutions. That, to me, I think was the most frustrating part, was the lack of transparency with that communication.
Yeah. Very rational suggestion, Taylor. You should be attending the governor's meeting when they decide this, and put that in and tell Stuart Johnson, the commissioner, that this is a tough decision for him to go through early in his tenure. Tell them that and do it that way. You're far too rational for the Canadian Football League right now. So, but I think that's a great idea. When I say earlier, your point is way better. Tell everybody Thursday, because the city was jam packed with Country Thunder fans
and Craig Reynolds said they knew about the potential for smoke on Thursday, and that, to me, I was like, well, why are we reacting Friday at 11:15 then?
Yeah,
that to me was the biggest issue.
Yeah, so they were planning at the last minute as opposed to planning ahead of time, and they could have had a fallback position. Especially, you know what, Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, and Winnipeg are centers that might have this plaguing them all summer. We're not belittling at all or making light of how a football game is affected by smoke when there are people fighting the fires in northern Saskatchewan and losing their homes and being displaced. That's far more serious. But the repercussions still come down here too. And these are things that, as sports people, that's what we're dealing with. So understand the issues and plan ahead for them. And I think that's what the new policy has to do. And your suggestion is terrific. If they're relying on meteorologists and those decisions on Friday night, why weren't they relying on them Thursday? Because they're just as good at forecasting and their prognostication. So get those plans in place earlier so that you can make the decision earlier and get everybody get everything resolved and let the people watch the games, play the games, and keep it healthy. They made the right decision ultimately, but it should have been done earlier.
I agree with that, Darrell. Well, they're on the road in BC, so they're in a dome this week. We won't have to worry about the smoke, but then we'll have to see how it all plays out a couple of weeks from now.
They might get burned pretty badly, though, and I'm sorry for that horrible pun. But when we watch BC play against Edmonton, oh my goodness, are they playing well? The Lions are starting to rev up, and they look like one of the scary teams in the CFL right now.
Well, we'll chat about the Riders-Lions matchup next week on the Rider Rumblings podcast. Darrell, thanks as always for joining.
All right, see you soon, Taylor.